Very good evening to everybody and welcome to this next in our Music Revival online live stream series. This is Christopher Dagen coming to you from my home in KwaZulu-Natal. Just to repeat, I mentioned this last session, I had an inquiry from more than one person to say, why do I never include the titles of the pieces, the very first and the very last pieces I play in every stream? I never include titles for those. Everything else I tell you what it is, but I never include the titles for those too. And the reason is simple, is that I actually improvise those pieces. I make them up spontaneously on the spot. And the response was actually quite positive. It was quite interesting. They said, oh, actually, we'd be really grateful if you could write some of these improvisations down because they really like them and they would like to possibly play them and purchase them. So if you like some of these improvisations that I play at the beginning of and end of every stream, and you think it's a good idea and you think it might be a market to possibly record it, print it, write it down, let me know, because it would be interesting to know whether actually there is an interest in that music that I improvise. This evening's program, I'm playing in concert session, so this is our Saturday classical program. We delayed this from last week for various reasons. I had done really 2 streams last Saturday and previous Saturday and then Wednesday. But it's a very dramatic and very demanding program that I originally had called in my live performances Classic Icons, or Iconic Classics. These are very big standard pieces that most concert pianists will include in their repertoire, sort of forming a base, a very substantial pinning point in the program. This is the meat of any program. And of course, me being brave as I usually am, I decided to include several of these pieces in one program. So I am playing for you tonight just the first movement from the Sonata in B-flat by Mozart, Beethoven's great Appassionata Sonata, and then also the Mephisto Waltz and the Hungarian Rhapsody number 12 by Franz Liszt. Very dramatic, very demanding program. Let's see how it goes, because it's all just up in the air and there's lots that can go wrong, but I'm sure it will be exciting and something interesting is going to happen, I'm sure. Speaking of interesting, this is not only about music and sound, but also about visuals. And of course, we are coming in now to the first week of August. And all of the orchids, all of the Cymbidiums, well, not all of them, but many of them have decided to erupt into blooms, ablaze. You'll see, maybe if Leon even switches to the camera right, you'll see behind me, camera number 4, you'll see the orchids, a mass. I feel like, and someone said to me once, you look like you're in a florist's shop. There are flowers everywhere, orchids all around. So these are all flowering, not all of them, there are actually more, and there are another 100 or so in the greenhouse waiting. Many of them are budding and going to be blooming, so we'll certainly have orchids for the next couple of weeks. So I am going to start with the first movement of a Mozart sonata, like an orchid, a beauty of an orchid itself. So this is the Sonata K333 in B-flat, really one of Mozart's most beautiful works, substantial, a real concert work in terms of the 3 movements, provides substantial music, really musical content in the second, first, and third movements altogether. I'm only playing the first movement for you tonight, but a piece of music that is lyrical throughout. It's sublimely composed, a wonderfully serene, lyrical, and all those elements of theatre that Mozart has. This is the first movement, Sonata K333 in B-flat. That was the first movement of the Sonata B-flat K333 by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. My ears seem to be giving me a little bit of problem. I seem to be blocked for some reason this evening almost. I'm going to move on to the main work in this evening's program, the Sonata Opus 57 by Ludwig van Beethoven. This is the Appassionata, a title that Beethoven did apparently give to the music, telling us that this piece of music is extraordinary in that it is full of passion and full of emotion and full of freedom. It certainly is one of the most dramatic of the 32 piano sonatas, you might say, and one of the most dramatic works in the repertoire. In an interview I was watching just recently on YouTube with the pianist Murray Pariah, who's certainly one of the greatest pianists of the last 80 or so years, he was saying that while this piece of music can be analyzed and understood from a technical point of view or intellectually, that the real overriding essence of it, the real kernel which keeps the music together and which makes it really hang together as a piece, is its reliance on the emotion, the intensity of the emotional structure and substance of it as it moves from one emotion to the next. The music is written in 3 movements. The first being this incredibly dramatic contrast between very soft and very loud, bristling, sometimes lyrical moments, a contrast with these bristling passages that bounce up and down the keyboard. Is a very, very dramatic piece of music that it really focuses on 2 peak climaxes and then a very brilliant coda to end. The second movement is a prayer, a real sense of a hymn, a very simple melody, a very simple musical idea which is exploited and repeated again and again, ascending, grating with great intensity and increasing number of notes, sort of rises up into a sort of billowing smoke of intense emotion, intense freedom, rising up to the heavens, you might say, before it falls down to the opening idea, and then leads directly into the last movement, which is a storm of torment. It's quite extraordinary in its unrelenting, its relentless pursuit of the rhythm, the driving rhythm, the flowing scales and patterns. There's not a moment of respite until eventually it gets faster and faster and faster, and the music really just runs away in the extreme. The dam wall of emotion is let loose, and it ends in a very terrorizing and terrifying to play coda. It's, as I say, one of the most dramatic pieces, and it's a very challenging piece to play, and not only on a technical point, but in terms of keeping all those the intensity of emotion together in a very logical, precise place without losing balance, without losing the focus of actually letting it get away from you. So it's a very dramatic piece. I'm not quite sure how it's going to translate into such an intimate living room environment or into an intimate stream environment, but it certainly is a very powerful piece and wonderful opportunity to bring this to you tonight. Sonata Opus 57, the Appassionata by Beethoven. that was the Sonata, Opus 57, the Appassionata. I think we all need an interval after that. That is quite a piece of music to take in. Beethoven, in his darkest and most despairing moments there at the end, and a very dramatic piece, of course, for this evening's in-concert session. Moving on, I hope the orchids are providing some relief to the drama of the darkness of the music. The darkness of the music seems to be the right mood at the moment, though. And I'm going to end off with two pieces of music by Franz Liszt, the first of which is the Mephisto Waltz No. 1. This is a piece of music that Liszt wrote and equally to be performed happily in an orchestral version and as a piano solo. But it's really the piano solo version which is most often played, and it's a kind of a staple of the piano repertoire. It's a very interesting piece of music. I was in an interview recently of a number of pianists, and one of the most famous pianists, Katja Bacchiavelli, I think a correct pronunciation is, chose this out of all Liszt's works over the B minor sonata and so many of the other great works as the epitome of the greatest of the Liszt compositions that she preferred. She does play it very brilliantly, but principal reason that in a very short space of time of about 7 or 8 minutes, the piece manages to tell a rather convincing and rather fascinating story. The subtitle of the piece, Mephisto Waltz No. 1, is The Dance at the Village Inn. And this is inspired by the poem of the setting of the story of Faust, as written by Lenau, the German poet Lenau. And in this particular scene, Faust arrives with Mephisto at the village inn, and the villagers are in the midst of a wedding celebration, which is perhaps not going terribly well. The musicians are not perhaps up to scratch, and Mephisto grabs the violin from one of the musicians and starts tuning the violin, which you'll hear. Those are the notes that any violin will tune to. And then he starts playing a captivating waltz. So captivating that it sends the entire group of revelers into a spell and casts them into a slumber. He then casts his eye onto the young maiden Gretchen and plays a very, very seductive waltz. And you hear him laughing and sniggering in between at his own merriment, his own exaltation of his own powers, that you might say, of casting his magical spells. Gretchen resists at first, but eventually he has his way, and the music then returns to the opening waltz. The music reaches a great frenzy, an increased drama as his spell over her increases until there's this moment of great climax, you might say, and only the nightingales at the end of the piece, who are hiding in the trees, have borne witness to the scenes that they've disappeared, that they've seen below, and then Mephisto disappears into the darkness and is gone. In the moments of it, and it's a great end. So a very, very brilliant and exciting piece of music. The second piece, the Hungarian Rhapsody No. 12, of the 19 or so Hungarian rhapsodies that Liszt wrote, thought he was writing Hungarian folk music, but was really writing the music of the roaming Roma people, the gypsy people, you might say. And out of the 12, this is said to be the most concisely composed, because some of the melodies and some of the themes that you hear in the beginning and the middle of the piece are transformed and repeated in a very cohesive way. So you'll hear which is then repeated right at the end of the piece. So this little melody which is brought into the middle of the piece, it returns at the final moments as a great anthem. In between all this, Liszt introduces a number of different melodies, different thematic and melodic material in his typical very accomplished and very brilliantly scored and set pianistic style. And it's a very, very resounding and satisfying piece of music on the whole. I'm going to just get a little Lucy. Whoops, I can't. I'm tied into my microphone. Just hang on. I need to untie myself. Lucy can come. you go. In your basket. Go. In your basket. Stay there. Okay. concert session with myself, Christopher Daigen, on the 5th of August. That was the Liszt Hungarian Rhapsody number 12. And before that you heard Liszt's Mephisto. Well, as I said, demanding program, because I would be the only person that would be a bit silly, a bit stupid enough to try and play all these pieces in one program. But nevertheless, there it is. It is all together. I hope you enjoyed the selection, and I hope it came across beautifully on the live stream. Little Lucy's here, but I don't think, no, she's not going to come up right now. Hello, Lucy. Do you want to come up to say hello? Come on, Lucy. Lucy's here. Okay, Lucy's. I haven't got my microphone on. Sorry, Leon. Lucy's making a slow recovery. There we go, Lucy. Oh, slow recovery for little Lucy. And that does bring us to the end of this evening's program. Thank you, Leon, for the technical support. Thank you, everyone who's joined me tonight. And I look forward to seeing you on Wednesday for our next piano hour session. Look after yourselves, keep well, stay well, and see you then.